Good morning, everyone. In the last session, we discussed about the. So, what we discussed in the last session? Okay, so call by value, call by reference, as well as recursion. Getting the point. So, these are all the three important examples we discussed in the last session. So, today we are going to discuss about the one of the important example called access control. Access control is nothing but we are trying to work on the public access modifier. So, same way, other than this particular public access modifier, what are all the other access modifier we are having. So before going to discuss about this particular access modifier, first we need to understand the encapsulations here. So we already identified the class creations and variable declarations as well as method declarations here. Okay. So now we'll have a simple information about the encapsulation. So later we'll move on to this particular access control here. So what exactly the encapsulation is going to do? Basically, the process of this particular encapsulations, so it's going to wrap the data. Getting the point. So whatever the code we are going to write here, so it's going to wrapping the code and it's going to make the relation between the code and the data. So in the single unit of work here. So single unit of work is nothing but, if you see, so this is our box class, right? Here what we are doing here, we come up with a variable and we are coming with the methods, and same way we already define the constructors here. These are all the constructors we define here. Now what we are doing here, basically, so these are all the codes here. So whatever we define this particular variable, these are all the codes. Now this particular codes having the data. So whenever we are trying to creating an object or whenever we are calling this particular method, now what we will do, we are going to wrap the data into this particular code here. And entirely whatever we are trying to wrapping the data into the code, so this is it's going to have a single unit of work. So the single unit of work here, the box here, because the box can contain the one unit of work here, because inside this particular box only we are having this particular code as well as this particular methods here. Getting the point. So it's nothing but it's a combination of variable and methods. So we are going to call it as a one unit of work. One unit of works we'll call it as a encapsulation. So this is the one of the important principle. Getting the point. It's not, now what we understand here. So here we are trying to add a variable and methods as a single unit of work, that is called box. Because whenever I'm trying to discuss about this particular box, so what we are discussing here, it is a custom data type. Whatever the class we are creating, that is we are going to call it as a custom data type here. Okay, so this is one of the custom data type. Now if you see, to make our class with the encapsulations principle, now what we need to understand here, we are going to give the permission to the methods. We are going to give the permission to this particular method, not this particular variable. This variable outside of this particular class we are unable to access here. Getting the point. So this variable we can access within this particular class. So because what is the access modifier we are using? That is called private here. So this is important. But how we are going to access this value of this particular variable? With the help of this particular methods. So right now we are setting the values, but we are not getting the values here. So that also we are going to get the values here. Okay. So that we need to understand here. Basically, so if we want to make the fully encapsulated class, what we need, because here the data members of the class we need to make as a private. Now we can access the data members with the help of this particular setters and getters here. Whenever we are doing this, we are achieving the encapsulation principle here. Getting the point? It's a simple one. So what is we need to understand? Whatever the variable we are going to declare here, the variable, so we are not going to give the permission to access outside of this particular class, but we are giving the permission to access this variable. How? With the help of this particular methods here. With the help of this particular method. So that we need to understand here. So when we are making like this, so we are going to achieve the fully encapsulations principle here. Okay. So that we need to understand here. And now what we will do, we are going to come up with this particular access modifier. So to understand the encapsulation principle, first we'll understand the private related information. Later we'll write one example. So the example will contain the encapsulation principle here. Okay. So back to here. Now what we need to do, so understand this particular, so access modifier. So as I explained, we have a different access modifiers we are having. First one is public, second one is private, and the third one is protected. And also we are going to come up with the default access level. Okay, so this particular protected is applies only whenever we are trying to come up with the inheritance. So right now we did not discuss about the inheritance concept. So we are going to ignore right now the protected information, but we'll continue once we completed this particular the private related information. We are going to discuss about the protected as well. Okay, so now we'll understand about the public and the private. So public and private. So public we already identified it because there is no restrictions here. Any locations from anywhere you can access the public related information. But what about the private? The private information we are going to access only within the same class. Within the same class. So if you are trying to access outside of this particular class, you are going to get an error. That we need to understand here. Okay. So let's have a simple example on this. Here I'm going to create a one class, and this particular class will contain, okay, so private access control, I'm defining the name of the class, and now you can see into A. So this is the default one I'm making, public into B. Getting the point? Private into C. So here I'm declaring three variables. These three are having different data types here. So now, sorry, different access modifiers. So first one is the default. We are not providing anything. Second one is public. Third one is private. So we will not discuss about the protected as of now here. We'll continue the protected in our upcoming classes once we completed the inheritance concepts here. Okay. So now what we need to do here, because this is the variable private, so we cannot access this variable outside of this particular class. For this particular variable, now what I'm doing here, I'm trying to come up with a method here. So here, so I'm trying to generate the setters and getters. Now observe public int get C and public void set C. So what is exactly these two doing here? Now observe. So here, because of this particular private variable, how we are going to accessing this information with help of this. So this particular get C method will return the C value. Will return the C value. And now what I'm doing a set C method, it's trying to set the value. So whatever the value we're setting this local variable, and here now you can see we're trying to set into the instance variable here. Okay, this is we are going to call it as an instance variable, and this will call it as a local variable that we are already discussed in the previous section. Okay, now what I will do, so right now I'm saving this example, and we'll go to the main class. So this is the main class I'm trying to create here. PAC. So PAC dot. Now if you see how many variables we can give the values here. How many variables we are able to give the values here. So this is important here. Now if you see only A and B, we are unable to see the C's. Here if you see only two variable information we are able to access here. So if PAC is equals to something like I'm giving the 10, and PAC dot B is equals to I'm giving as a 20, and now whenever I'm giving PAC dot C is equals to something like 45. So if you see the C variable, we are getting an error. Getting the point? The C we are getting an error. Now you can read this. What is providing the information? Whatever the field we are providing, so it's not visible here. Getting the point? This is important here. Whatever the variable name we given here, it is not visible here. So it's nothing but, so we are restricting something here. But how we can access this? We are unable to call directly the variable information, but we have a option here, psc dot set c. So you can provide what you want to give. Getting the point? Now you can see these two variable directly we are able to access it, but for this particular C variable, we don't have a option to access the variable directly. And now what we are doing is we are calling the method here. We are calling the method and we are setting the value here. Getting the point? So this is the way we can set the values. Now what we can do once we set this particular value, now what we are going to do, and here we are going to print the values here. How I am trying to print? So here I'm going to print here PSA dot PSCB dot PSC get C. So now if you see how I'm trying to call this is important here. So this two variable directly I'm able to access because these two variable does not have a private access modifier. But whenever we are having the C variable we made as a private, we cannot access the variable directly. So now what I'm doing is I'm calling the get C method. And here you can see I'm calling the set C method to set up the value, and here I'm calling the get C method to load the value. Getting the point? So this is a way we are going to achieve the encapsulation principle here. So what we need to do, we need to make all the variables as a private, and directly we can access the variable values information with the help of this particular setters and getters here. Now you can see, so A and A comma B and C values here. So 10, 20, 45 we are getting. Getting the point? 10, 20 and 45 we are getting here. So any questions? Okay, so what we need to understand here, the A variable we come up with a default access modifier, and the B variable we come up with a public access modifier, the C variable we come up with a private access modifier. Okay, so to understand more, to come up with the encapsulation, fully encapsulation, now what I will do, I'm going to create one more class here. So you can see the name of the class I'm trying to come up with a stack here. The name of the variable I'm trying to come up with a stack. And now if you see, this is the stack example is important. So directly we are going to access it through the methods only, not the variable here. All the variable we are going to make as a private. Now what I'm doing here, private, and I'm trying to create a one int array here, and here I'm giving size as a 10. Okay, and one more variable I'm trying to give as a private, TOS. Getting the point? So into stck and into TOS. Getting the point? So these are all the two variables we are declaring, and these two variables we made as a private here. Getting the point? This is important, we need to understand. Okay, now once we familiar this, now what I'm going to write here, I'm going to come up with a constructor. The constructor right now I'm giving as a default one because we are inside the same package here. So default value I'm providing this -1, and so once we provide this particular constructor, now what I will do, so okay, so instead of defining this tag, okay, we'll come up with a later the example. Now understand. So void push is expecting item. Getting the point? So I'm trying to call the push method to insert the data into this particular array. And here I'm checking the condition. So what is the condition I'm checking? Because the size we made as a 10 here. Getting the point. Whenever I'm making the size as a 10, and what is the indexes values? 0 to 9 here. If the toss, like basically the line number 5, whatever the variable we declare here, if it is matched with the 9, because the TOS variable is going to work as a indexes here. The TOS variable is going to work as a index here. So now if you see, if this particular condition will satisfy, whatever the variable I'm making, TOS is equals to 9. Now simply I will print the message. What is the message I'm going to print here? The message is nothing but stack is full. Okay. And in the L section, now what I will do, I'm going to insert the data. So where I'm trying to inserting into this particular array here, because stck is the reference variable of this particular array, right? So now you can see, so I'm increasing the value, and here I'm going to store this particular item here. So now observe carefully. First I'm checking what is the value of this particular toss. If it is 9, I'm like printing the message. I'm not inserting the data. But in the L section, now what I'm doing is, every time I'm going to increase. Here, what is the operator we are using? Pre-increment operator we are using. And this particular pre-increment operator, what it will do, it will increment the first this particular TOS value, and later whatever the item we are having, it will insert into this particular stck. Stck is the reference variable of this particular array, into array. Okay, so this is the push method, and now we'll understand the pop method. Basically, pop method will return the int type. Pop method is returning int type. So why we are returning int type? Because we are trying to store the data as a int type only. And here I'm checking the condition. If this particular TOS less than 0, if this particular TOS less than 0, I'm going to print this particular again the message. Stack is underflow. Getting the point. Stack is underflow, and I'm trying to return 0 value, because the pop method is expecting some value. The pop method is expecting some value here. Okay, that is I'm trying to return. And in the else statement, now what I will do, so here directly I'm going to return stck, and now I'm trying to return stck, and here we are providing the variable here. So basically this variable, now we understand here how it is working here. So this variable first time is inserting the data. So same it is working as the index, and here also it's working as the index to load the data. So here the TOS is working, is playing very important role as a index role here, because this particular index only, with help of this particular index only, we are going to insert the data, and we are going to load the data from the particular example. Okay, now so this is the stack. But if you observe, we are whatever the variable we are having, we are making as a private, and we are accessing through the only this particular setters and getters. So this is, if we want to achieve the fully encapsulation, so this is the way we need to create the class here. Getting the point. So by seeing this particular class, we are able to achieve the fully encapsulation of this particular example. Okay, now how we are going to insert the data and how we are going to load the data. So here inside this particular class only, I am going to access here. Now I'm trying to comment out this example, and here stack here. So stack 1 is equals to new stack. Okay, so one object I'm creating, and one more object I'm going to create. So two objects I'm creating. Getting the point. So two objects I'm creating, but here, because we are trying to insert multiple values, not only the one value we are not going to insert here, because we come up with the array type here. So if we want to insert the multiple values, what is the best way? Here we can go for the loop here. With help of this particular loop, we can insert the value. Okay. Now again I'm going to use loop here, and now observe. int I is equals to 0, I less than, I'm making the 10, and I plus plus. Okay, and once we create this particular loop, now what I will do, stck dot push method I'm calling, and here I'm going to provide the I. Here I'm going to provide the I. This particular I, what it will do, it will try to insert the data here. It will try to insert the data. So instead of inserting the 1 to 4, something like we'll multiply with the 2. Okay, so this is the one example, and one more example. Now what I will do, here I'm going to make as a 20. The loop is going to repeat 20 times, and this is the second time I'm trying to insert the data. Okay, so this is the push. So what is the best way to load the data? Again, pop method we need to use. Again, pop method we need to use. So now if we observe, this out here, stck1 dot pop method. Okay, now I'm going to run this example. Now you can see what happening internally. So we are getting stack is full, stack is full. Why we are getting stack is full? Because whatever the variable we provided, so it is out of this particular index here. So if you see this, if I'm going to comment out this, if I'm going to comment out, now you can see the values we are getting. Getting the point? The values we are getting. But here, what is the condition we are providing? Here we are providing 20. Basically, what is the size we are having? What is the size we provided? 10. Getting the point? This is important, we need to understand. Here, size we are having 10, but the loop is going to repeat 20 times. Whenever it is repeating 20 times, now what happening internally? Whenever this particular variable matched with 9, so this message is printing. This message is printing multiple times here. How many times this item, the push method is going to call? So if the variable is already increase the value up to the 9, and later every time it's going to print this particular message. Getting the point? This is important, we need to understand here. Okay, so if we understand more, what we can do, we'll put a breakpoint in the push method and pop method, so that we can understand how this particular push and pop is working. Okay, so let me run as a debug application. We can see the push method is calling. From where it is calling? Here it is calling. Inside the loop, it is calling the push method. And now in the right side section, observe carefully, the variable section is important here. And I value how much we are having? Right now, 0. So how many iterations is completed? Only one iteration is completed now. So now inside the one iteration only, we are trying to store the data. So you can check this particular task here. What is the value right now? It is a -1. If you want to know, here you can expand this, and you can see here we are having -1 here. So here you can see -1 we are having to us. So this is the -1 equals to 9. It's not going to satisfy. This condition is failed. So if you want to know, you can add into the expression. You can see the TOS equals to 9. What is returning here? False. In the expression you can see it is returning false. Okay. Now what I will do, I'm going to, if the if condition is false, we'll go back to the else section. Getting the point? If the if condition is false, we are going to the else section. And now what we are doing? First we are incrementing this particular toss, and now you can see stck. So what is the size we are having? 10. Let me show you that also. Here we are having. You can read this. How many zeros we are having? So we are having 10 zeros, because the size we given as a 10. Getting the point? The size we given as a 10. Now it is trying to insert the values inside this particular 10 arrays here. Okay, so now whenever I'm coming to the next line, you can see the value is inserted as a 0. Okay, the value inserted as a 0, and now it's the second iteration, item 2. Item 2 we are passing here, and now you can see, so again this condition is failed. So again we are coming back to the L section, we are inserting the data. You can see inside this particular stack here, so first value is 0, second value we are inserting as a 2, and the third value we'll see, so third value here, item 4 we are getting. Okay, the item we are getting as a 4, but now again the toss is not satisfy the if condition, so it's coming to the else. Now you can see 4 values inserted. So here it is inserted as a 4, 0, 2, 4, and the remaining we're having still zeros. And one more way. Now toss is failed, the if condition is failed, and again we are coming to the L section. Now you can see the stack, how many values we are having. You can read here, so 0, 2, 4, 6. Okay, so this is the way the values are inserting. And again the if condition is failed. Now it's the toss we are getting as a 8 value, the item we are getting as a 8 here. The item value we are going to store into this particular stack. You can see here the 8 is stored. Okay, so this is the way the values are inserting into this particular push method. Okay, now what is the iteration of this? I value 9. Okay, so now the stacks are having the values. If we expand this, these are all the values, 0 to 18. 0 to 18 we inserted the values. Getting the pen. Here we are trying to multiply this based on the result. We are trying to store the particular item here. Okay. Now what we are doing here, we are trying to load the data from the same stack here. Whatever the stack now we inserted with the help of this particular push method. Now we are trying to load the data. So how we are going to load the data? So again I put the breakpoint in the pop method. Observe here. So what is the toss? What is the value of this particular toss right now? It is 9 here. Because 0 to 9, the size, the indexes we have, getting the point. 0 to 9 only the values we inserted, and what we are doing is, so this is the toss is having the 9 value, it is less than to 0. Again, this particular condition is also failed here. Again, this particular condition is also failed. So now again it's going back to the L section. And here in the 9 index location, what is the value we are having? The value is going to load in the 9 index location, because this particular TY is having the value of 9 here. Now if you see, so this is the 9. It started with a 0, it's ended with a 9. What is the value we are having in the 9? That is called 18. The 18 is going to return by this particular pop method. Okay, observe carefully. So what is the value is returning? 18. Okay, so later the TOS index value is going to decrease. Now what is the value of this TOS? Now it's become 8. How it is decrease the value? Here, what is the operator we are using? Post to decrement operator. Getting the point. Here, pre-increment operator we are using, and here we come up with a post to decrement operator. So once a value is loaded from the stack, this toss is the TOS variable value is going to decrease here. Okay, so this we need to understand carefully. And now what I'm doing here. So one more variable is going to load. Whatever the value is available in the 8th index location, the value will be load 16. And this is the toss variable we are having right now 7. Now you can see what is the 7 value we are having. So this is the 9, this is the 8, and this is the 7. That is called 14. So now you can see it will return the 14. Okay, so this is the way all the values are going to load here. Now understand here, we inserted the value into the stack, and the same way we inserted, like we load the values from the stack here. So any questions here?
Hi. Uh, I would like to understand the access modifier here. So we have specified it as a private in one of the class, and now we are using it. So I would like to understand what's the difference
No,
between public and private.
basically, public is nothing but from where you it's there is no restriction for the public. You can access from any
Yeah,
package location, any other location. But the
yeah,
private
I
here, with
understand.
yeah, tell me.
I understand the definition. Like public means we can access from any other class, but we have defined it as a private. But
Hmm.
we can able to access from this class, right? So
See, I think you did not understand. If you see here, PAC dot B we are accessing, but here PAC dot C we are not accessing.
yeah, correct.
We are coming with a method here. It is not a variable. It is a method. Set C is a one method we define here. If you go to this, this is the variable and this is the method. The method you can see we come up with a public only.
Regarding the example of stack, in the example stack, I got
So
to
stack
find
also
out.
same. These two variable we made as a private, and these are all the method we did not provide anything. So if we are not providing anything, it is a default.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so here also I provided nothing. Int A I did not provide anything, but int B I'm providing the public. Int C we are coming with the private. So this is the default access modifier. If I'm not providing anything, so this will call it as a default one.
Okay.
Okay, it's
In the
clear.
next program, can you open the other program where we are calling the method?
Here only.
Yeah, yeah. Here we are using that stack one, right? Stack
It
one. Okay,
it is
okay.
an
Stack
object.
is an object. Yeah, correct, correct. Yeah, with the names I just adjusted. Okay, thanks. I got it.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So now we understand the private access modifier. So how we can use, and now whatever the stack example we are using here, we are going to come up with a dynamic behavior. Basically, we are providing the stack as a 10 here, but we don't want to give this particular size as a static value, right? So we need to come up with a dynamic whenever we are trying to create object of this particular stack. Okay. So this example little bit we are going to expand. Like once we familiar with our static related example here. Okay. So just understand here the same example we are going to come one more time, and at the same time we will understand the dynamic initialization. Dynamic initialization is nothing but based on our requirement the stack is going to increase, and based on our requirement the stack is going to decrease. Dynamically it is going to increase and decrease. Basically we all aware of the stacks here, the like whatever the arrays we created earlier, it's on the fixed size. So once we provided the size, we cannot modify the size here. So within the size only, we are going to provide the values. But now what we will do, so the size we are going to provide the dynamically, and if we want to increase the size, so we can increase the size, and how we are going to increase the size and how we are going to decrease the size, we'll see once we are familiar with the static related example here. Okay. Now we'll discuss about the static related information. So whenever we are trying to come up with the main method, here we are discussing about the static here. Okay. So same way, so not only this particular main method, we are going to use in the different location the static. And what is the behavior of this particular static, we need to understand here. Getting the point. So most of the time now what we are doing here, so we are trying to come up with a object creation. If we want to access any method, now what we did here, as of now, we created an object here, and based on the object reference here, we are trying to call the appropriate method. But now, so using this particular static, now what we will do, we are not going to create the object here. We are not going to create an object here. So directly, we are going to call the method here. Getting the point. With the help of this particular class name, we are going to call the appropriate this particular method here. Okay, so let's understand the simple example. First we'll see variable declarations and methods and static blocks here. So these are all the important things we need to understand. Let me create a simple example on the static here. So use static I'm trying to create here. Now you can see the variable level. So this is the first time we are using the static here. Int a is equals to 3. Okay, and one more variable I'm defining, static into b. Getting the point? So we are having two variable, one is initialize and another one is just declare here. And so method I'm trying to declare here. So static void, whatever the method we used in the yesterday class, the same method I'm using, but the difference here, the method we come up with a static here. I'm not providing anything, just I'm trying to print the values. So just we are going to understand how the static method will work here. Here I'm providing the x value and first one is a and another one is b. Okay, these are all the three values I'm going to print. Getting the point? So x value, a and b values we are going to print. And the b value right now just we declare here. But how I'm going to initialize this particular b value? If we observe, this section will call it as a static block. Whatever we are defining line number 12, this section will call it as a static block here. Okay, so now we'll see when this particular static block is going to execute. So I'm going to print the statement here. Okay, static block is initialized here, and b value I'm going to multiply it with this particular 4. Okay, the b value how I'm getting, whatever the a value we are having, I'm trying to multiply it with this particular 4. The result we are trying to initializing into this particular b. Okay, now we need to understand. So static block when it's going to execute, when the method is going to execute here. So I'm calling the main method, and inside the main method, if you see, so directly I'm calling this particular method. Directly I'm calling this particular method. So here I'm not creating any objects. Observe carefully. Here I'm not creating any objects here. So what are all the objects? Basically, if this method is not a static, whatever the method we define, if it is not a static, what we need here? So we need to create an object of this particular user static here. And once a object is created, with the help of the reference variable, we are going to call this particular method here. But right now, we are not creating any object here. So directly, we are calling this particular method. So if you observe, now what happens internally? Even though if I'm calling this particular method, what is the first is executing here? The static block is executing first. Getting the point? This is important here. So this is important here. Before calling the method, first it is taking the highest priority to this particular static block, and once a static block is executed, it's trying to call the method here. And these are all the values we are having. X value 12, A value 3, and B value also we are getting as a 12. Getting the point? And here all the values we made as a static. But now if you see, now I want to access this particular A, and now you can see, so I want to access, sorry, I want to access B. So directly only we are able to access this particular values. The line number 99, 20 you can see A and B values are printing. And what is the another way? If I want to access from the outside of class, so how we are going to access here? Use okay, not use only, right? So use static dot a. You can see the difference here. Whenever I'm trying to run this example, the same value I'm getting. But what is the difference here? This particular B we can access within the same class here. Here we don't have any references variable. Directly we can access because the compiler can understand this B is a static value. Whatever the B we are defining here, it is a static value we can access here. But the problem when you are trying to access this particular B outside of this particular user static, outside of this particular use static class. So whenever you are trying to declare B, you cannot access. What is the best way? So this is the way. Use static dot a. So basically we are giving an option here. So like we are sharing the information where this particular a variable is available. Where this particular a variable is available, inside this particular use static, we have a one variable that is called a. We are accessing it. So this is a way the compiler will understand. It will go to the user static classic and it will look up the a variable. And whatever the value we are going to have, it will print here. So same way method also. Because we are in the same class, so directly we are calling this particular method. But if it is a another class, so the method also we are going to call same like this. The same method we are going to call like this here. Now if I'm going to run this, we'll get the same result. Okay, but here what you are understanding is whenever we are making anything static here with help of this particular class name, directly we are able to access here. And here we are not requiring the object creation. Okay, so when we can use this information, whenever if we want to use the common information, because so this particular common information directly we can call the class name and the method name we are going to call and we'll get the result here. But if we want to come up with a specific here, what we will do, we'll create the normal method and the normal method we are going to come up with a specific implementation and we'll create an object. With the help of the object we are going to call the normal method here. Okay, so this is the static behavior. And here what we need to understand here, whenever we are trying to declare this particular member with a static here and it can access before the any objects of class are created. Okay, the static behaviors are going to load, so highest priority is going to take whenever the classes are will load here. Getting the point? At the time of loading this particular class only, the static related information is going to load. And inside this particular static, and this is the block is going to take highest priority. Whenever the class is loading the time, first it will load this particular static and later it will try to initialize this particular value, and later whenever we are calling this particular method, the values are going to load. The method is going to call here. Okay, so any questions here regarding this particular static?
So, sir, first it's loading the line number 18 because we are calling the method.
No. Basically, whenever we are trying to load this particular class, at the time of only this particular block is going to load. And whenever we are calling this particular method, it will try to look up this particular method. So first priority, this one. Second priority, this variable initialization. And the third priority, the method here.
Okay. And sir, one more thing, like, so before static, we are not using any access modifier. Is it default?
Yes. Okay, if we want to understand, so we can use the public. See, same result.
Okay. And sir, line number 12, this static, what is this? Is this method or what?
It is a block here. It is not a method. So this we'll call it as a block. See, we have two blocks. First one is a static block and we have an instance block. So this is the instance block we are going to call. Instance block, we don't have any name, but the static block is going to start with the static.
So what's this meaning of why we are using like
see
this block?
This basically we are giving the options because it is taking the highest priority. At the time of loading the class only, if we want to load something, we can go for the static block. And this instance block here, before creating an object, this instance block will load. Getting the point? However, you are going to use a new with some class name. So whenever we are trying to create an object, at the time of creating an object, first it will look up the any instance blocks we are having. If we are having, the instance block will load, otherwise it will create an object. Okay, so basically this
Sir,
static and this, yeah.
one small doubt. Sir. So is static block and default constructor are both similar, sir? Like in the starting of the program, that will take as preference, right? Am I right?
See, default constructors, whenever we are creating a constructor, it will load. If you are not creating, like if you are not creating any object, the constructors will not going to call. Okay, and yes,
So here we don't need any object creation, but for constructors we need an object.
yes.
Okay, okay, sir, got it. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll see the simple example on this instance blocks and static blocks. So we'll get to know like how these examples are going to work. Okay, so right now focus here how this static is using here. That is important here. Okay, I will come up with the static with the non-static related information. So then we can easily understand here how it is going to work here. Let me see. Okay, so what I'm doing here, so we may come up with one more example. And here I'm going to provide public here, public into C. So this into C I'm defining as it is a non-static variable. Whatever the C we are defining, it is a non-static variable. Okay, now if you see what we are doing basically, so I'm trying to access this C variable inside this. Okay, I'm going to copy this. Here I will make as a C. Now if you see, we are getting an error. So can you please think and let me know why we are getting an error for this particular C variable?
Because this method is static void math. That's why.
Okay, so
C is the instance variable, so that variable we are trying to access in a static method.
okay, now so we come up with something like so this is the instance method. Now what I'm doing, I'm going to copy all the variables here. So I'm passing in text. So what about now? Why I'm not getting the C ABC errors here in the line number 14, whatever the method we defined here? Okay, so basically what I want to provide here inside the static, not only this particular method, if you are trying to access here also, if you access here also, the C will give an error here. Getting the point? And now, so here also we are getting an error. In a wherever we are having the static related information, whenever we are trying to access the non-static variable information or non-static method related information, so we are going to get an error. But the opposite it will work. So if you see, this is the non-static method. It's like an instance method we defined, and here, so normal variable and a static variable. So both we are able to access here. And here, now what I will do, so from this particular method, I'm going to call the Sorry. I'm calling this particular method here. Okay, but here, whenever I'm calling this instance method, so if you see, if I'm calling this X, it's giving me an error. Why?
Non-static variables or methods cannot be defined in a static method, but static variable and static methods can be used anywhere in the class.
Yes. See, basically, this method, if we want to call, we need an object. But this method, without object, we call here. Okay. And here, now what I'm doing is, so again, I'm calling the instance method. Basically, this method we need object here. But here, where we are creating an object, we are not creating any object. Okay. So this method directly we cannot call here, because without the object, this method is not going to call. And same way, this variable also, because it is an instance variable. Without this particular object, we are unable to call this particular C variable as well. Okay, this is important. But inside this static, like inside this particular instance method, without the object we are calling, because these are all the static here. Getting the point? These are all the static here. The static variable directly we can call, even though it is the instance method, nothing happens here. But inside the static, because he is expecting the object here, without creating an object, we are calling the method. So this is not possible here. So in the two location, it is not possible. Okay, now we understand this. Now what I will do, so wherever we are using this particular C, I will remove here. And here I'm going to create an object here. So object US is equals to new use static we created. And if I want to access this C, US dot C. Okay, now it is resolved. Now what I will do, here I'm going to come up with one instance block. Okay, instance block is executed, and here the C value I'm going to initialize. So C is equals to A multiply B. Okay, the C value I'm trying to initialize here. Now, so observe the same example here. See the output first. First, which block is taking the highest priority? Static block.
Right.
And the second one is instance block. And later, the method is calling. Which method is calling? This particular method is calling. Okay. Later we are printing the B, and later we are printing this particular C. So ABC values we are printing 3, 12, 16. Okay. Now same way, what we will do? We are going to call this particular US dot one method. We are having something like instance method, so you can provide some value. Whenever you are providing like this internally, again we are calling the method. So observe this output way may different now. Okay, static block, instance block. First, from the main method we are calling the method, and the three variable is printing, and these are all the X, A, B, C. So this is the instance method is called here, and finally the one more time we are calling the method here. Getting the point? Observe carefully. First object we are creating, and we are calling the method. But before creating an object, these two blocks are executing. First, at the time of loading the class, this block is going to execute, and at the time of this is an object creation. Before going to create an object of this particular use static, this block is going to execute. Getting the point? So for each object creation, this blocks will execute, but this section will execute only one time. At the time of loading the classes here, this is the blocks are going to execute here. Okay, finally we are calling the method, and we are printing this particular three variable. Again we are calling the instance method. The instance method internally we are calling the one more time the static method here. Okay, so this is the way we are going to use the static and non-static. This is very important here because in the logical related example, so you may get this kind of questions here. Any questions? Okay, if you don't have anything here, now we are going to revisit this particular array related here. Only the simple information I'm going to write here, and where we define the arrays example. Well. Factorial call by reference box. Okay. Now what I will do, I will come up with one example on this particular array. So basically, length related. How we can find out the array length? We already identified. Just I'm trying to show one more time how this particular length is going to work in the arrays here. Array length here. So inside the main method, I'm going to write here, and so I'm copy the from the different location this. Now observe carefully what I'm doing here. So first one, we come up with a normal array size creation, and this is the array initializers. We are going to call these two sections. So just we are providing the values, and here what we are doing is we are providing the size, but right now we don't have a values here. We are not initializing the value, just we come up with the size. But what about these two? These two, it will do the two steps here. First, it will come up with the size, and the second, it will initialize the value. So how the values are going to initialize? So this is an order here. How the order we are providing, the same order, the values are going to initialize here. But what about the line number 6 here? Just we declared the size here, but we did not initialize any values here. Okay. Now, what is the size of A1, A2, and A3? This is important here. So if I'm going to run this example, so observe carefully. A1 length we are having 10, and A1 length we are having 4, and A3 length we are having, sorry, A2 8 and A3 4. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and here we are having 8. Getting the point? But how many values we have inside this? Nothing. Nothing. Size we provided as a 10, but the values are not yet initialized into this particular A1. All the values we are going to get as a default one. What about these two? These are all the values we are having. Okay. So this is important. We need to understand here. So if I'm going to put a breakpoint here, if I'm going to run the same example in the debug mode, now observe the A1 is created here. But what are all the values we are having? All are empty here. So these are all the default values, but we are not initializing, like we are not inserting the values into this particular A1. So how we are going to initialize it? So this is the way. In the 0 index location, I'm going to give as a 45. Okay, so restart the same example one more time. Now if you see, so A1, A2, A3. But here, if I'm clicking in this A1, so the one value we are initializing, that is called 45. Okay, what about this particular A2? Now you can see all the values are initializing. And A3, you can see all the values are initializing here. This is an advantage we are going to get whenever we are trying to use the array initializer. But this is the normal way of creating an array, and this is some advantage we are getting. This will give you the 2 steps advance. It will create a size, and later it will initialize all the values into the appropriate array here. Okay, and these 3 we are having the same here. But how we can find out the length? The length we already aware of this. This is the way we can find out the size here. So length and size is the same. But now, if we want to know how many elements are having inside this particular each array, so this is the way only we need to figure it out. So A1, we can provide the array, the index element. The index element will return the value. If the value is available, it will return. Otherwise, the default value we are going to get here. So basically, so this particular length variable, it is not a method. So observe carefully. because whenever we are trying to discuss string related example, we are going to call the length method. We are going to call length method, but right now this is a variable here. Length is a variable here, so which is declared inside this particular arrays concept here to find out the length of or size of this particular array here. Okay, so this is I want to provide the information regarding this particular array, and so on Monday we'll discuss about the stack related example. So here I'm going to come up with a dynamic initialization of this particular array, and later, so once it is completed this particular stack, now I'm going to discuss about the nested and inner classes. So this is also important example we are going to discuss how we can come up with a nested and inner classes here. So any questions regarding our today's session? Okay, if not, we'll continue on Monday. Okay, thank you for joining. We'll see you on Monday.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.